I'm going to ask you, I love the Carry On films and I love the Doctor Who films.
Yes.
Did you enjoy doing the Doctor Who film?
Yes, I did, yes. Yes, I'd worked with Cushing before, and it was nice to work with him again. One of the things I remember, actually, about that Doctor Who film was getting the terrible giggles when I met a Dalek. Because, as you know, I mean, there's a guy inside pedalling his feet along the floor, shuffling along, you see, sitting in this great motorised dustbin. And one of the operators was a guy called, I think he was called Bob Jewell, and he was Australian. So you would meet this Dalek who would then say to you, you know, turn round, you will be exterminated. But it used to come out like, you will be exterminated. And I used to just fall on the floor and like, Carl, what's the matter? Yes, I'm sorry, there's a man. And I'd just gone, you see.
He's probably in Neighbours now.
More than likely, he's probably running Neighbours.
You appeared as Victoria in Doctor Who with the late Patrick Troughton.
That's right. Yes.
Obviously you must have happy memories of those days.
Oh, I do, very happy memories. And actually, yes, I was at the convention last year, and I hope to be there again this year. But I have very happy memories, and we got on so well. Pat became really like a good friend and a second father to me. And of course, Fraser was like a brother, so we made a family. And it wasn't really like working. It was lots of fun. We did take it seriously, of course, but I looked forward to going to rehearsals. I usually can't stand rehearsing. I like going on there and doing it. But no, Pat was lovely and he should be missed very dearly.
I understand that Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines, they were very good at pranks, weren't they? Is that correct?
Yes, practical jokes. Yes, I always thought I might get my own back, but I never did. There was always some joke going on which I didn't know about, and you know, they'd do it on me and I think, oh no! And especially when we were filming, you know, used to send me up rotten and on camera. So, no, but they were lovely.
Any examples of their trickery?
Oh dear, examples. Oh dear. Well, to cut a very long story rather short, we were filming the last episode, storyline. I think it was Enemy from the Deep, where it involved a seaweed monster. And we were walking along the beach in Margate about January. It was wet, it was freezing, and I had the miniskirt on. And we come across this great pile of foam, and I said to Pat and Fraser, look, do you mind, I'll just stand on the borders of this foam, and you go in and play and muck about and do whatever you want, try to discover what it is. I knew I couldn't move from the actual edge of the foam, because that was the edge of the camera as well. So I said, all right, that's fine. So the director, by this time, by the way, we had lots of people watching who gathered to watch it. And so the director said, right, action, and in they went. And I said, Dr. Jamie shouting, what is it? And they say, well, we don't know, Victoria. I mean, all this went on. And all of a sudden they stopped, and they looked at each other, and the gleam came into their eye. And I knew, as I say, I couldn't move. They very slowly came towards me, picked me up, dragged me into the centre of it, and gave me the birthday bumps. And I came up like a foam monster, and the director said, cut, that was great, absolutely wonderful, but I'm sorry, somebody laughed in the crowd. Dry her off, wipe her down, we'll do it again.
Complete change of subject when it comes to television. Doctor Who you were in as well.
Yes, I was. Now, isn't it curious too, because I suppose I made that, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, something like that. It was a particularly popular series. It was called Genesis of the Daleks, and it was something like 6 episodes, I think, and it was the first series that had been written by Terry Nation for many years. The series had been popular for years and years and years, and had been written by other writers, of course, because Terry Nation had gone on to other things. But suddenly one day they said, right, we're going to go back to the beginning of the story, and we want to know how the Daleks began and first came into Doctor Who's life. And Terry decided to write this series himself, so it was particularly good. And it has gone down in the sort of annals, Doctor Who fans assure me, and is very much repeated all over the world, especially in America. And the consequence is that even now, 16 years later, I still get fans at the stage door of theatres where I'm doing a play or, you know, whatever it may be, or even at the BBC, asking me to sign Doctor Who annuals and talking about conventions and Doctor Who fan clubs and things, which is extraordinary after all these years. Especially it wasn't that large a part. I mean, I think I had 2 or 3 episodes. It was in the days of Colin Baker. He was wonderful, great fun to work with. Tom Baker, great fun to work with. How dare I not know his name? Thank you for correcting me.
There are loads of Bakers, isn't
there? Yes, I suppose there are. Yes, it was Tom Baker. And yes, with that absurd scarf and everything. He was a lovely man. Always said he'd much rather have been a gardener than an actor, but there you go.
Now, I've just been watching an episode of the Ark in Space, where the creature known as, was the Wirren, was it called? I remember.
Wirren, yes.
The Wirren, that's right. It was a type of large wasp parasite.
Yes, almost
type
like a
thing.
locust, in fact. Yes,
Horrible, quite-
yes.
Quite horrible.
It was actually. It was the story where Harry typically opens the cupboard, and the dead Wirren falls out almost on top of him. And I remember now, although I'd actually seen it before we shot the scene, it was there obviously for camera rehearsals and so on. So I knew what it looked like. But when the time came to actually do it, it was just as in a way as if there I was as Harry really opening the door. It was an enormous thing, and it had that glossy sort of finish on it, so it looked really quite as though it had only just died. Horrible thing.
Quite nasty.
Very nasty.
Did you ever get frightened by some of these monsters, or were you bored stiff by them by the end of the series?
No, I don't think I was ever bored, because we always had fun. This fun word I keep using, but the characters who played, of course, that monster was just an object. It wasn't a person. There wasn't an actor inside it. But of the monsters where we did have actors inside, like Stigron in Android Invasion, or Broton, my favourite, I think, Warlord of the Zygons in Terror of the Zygons, which was played by John Woodnut.
That was one with the Loch Ness Monster.
That's right, yes. But I thought those costumes were the most convincing and realistic, and the most frightening. They're sort of giant prawn or giant shrimp-like things, And John Woodnut played Broton, and some years later I appeared with John in a Chekhov play at the Liverpool Playhouse called Uncle Vanya, and he played Professor Serebriakov and I played Dr. Astrov, and for some days at the beginning we couldn't really look at each other in the eye at rehearsals, because we kept remembering the fun and jokiness of having played in Terror of the Zygons.
Michael Wisher and Peter Miles. Now, Michael, you played that horrendous villain on Doctor Who, Davros, didn't you? Or at least...
Well, actually, I thought he was rather sweet, really. I mean, I quite enjoyed playing him. I could sympathise with him sometimes.
He was horrible.
Well, no, I don't think so. I think he had a point. I mean, I really believed in him for a while. I thought, he was quite nice, really, in many ways. I mean, he was trying to save an entire population.
He rather reminded me of a screaming politician, calm at 1 minute and the next minute ranting and raving.
Well, a touch of Adolf here and there, I suppose, doesn't go amiss, It's, no, I think he was... he had a desperate task to perform, and he thought what he was doing was right. The fact that it terrified everybody is due entirely to Terry Nation.
Now, Davros created the Daleks, didn't he?
Well, yes, that was the idea. He created them out of necessity because the race on Skaro was dying, and the only way he could continue the race as he saw it was by creating this army of mutants, really, inside machines. Of course, there were other mutants on the planet as well, I believe, with various sacks round their heads and arms and things, but it was mainly his mutants that he was concerned with.
When was the first time that Davros was introduced to the Doctor Who programme? Can you remember the first episode?
Well, yes, it's indeed the only episode I was in. It was 10 years ago, I think. 10 years ago.
Genesis of the Daleks.
Genesis of the Daleks, that's right, yes. And that was indeed the only time I had anything to do with it. Yeah. The subsequent Davroses, or should they be Davrai, appeared later on about 5 occasions, I think, in various disguises.
Yeah. Great pleasure indeed to be talking to Mr. Trevor Martin, who played Doctor Who on stage. Isn't that right, Trevor?
Yes, that's right. I'm sort of an oddity around here, as being the only one who's done it on stage as opposed to television. There are 8 of them on television. I think, is it 6 or 8?
It's 6.
Oh, well, that should be 8, I suppose.
It's 7, including Richard Herndon, who I understand played William Hartnell's part, the late William Hartnell's part.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know Richard had played that.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the television version at all?
Oh, yes. I used to watch it a lot, regularly, every week, especially when my own children were very young. And I suppose I watched it from when it first started with William Hartnell, through till well into John Pertwee. But lately I haven't seen so many, although I have seen John Baker, Colin, and the other one, and but my own work sort of got in the way, and you don't often get the chance to see the things at the same time as you're working in the theatre.
When was it actually, this stage production? It was in the 70s, wasn't it?
Yes, 1974. It was quite an interesting idea. The idea was that we were going to do it as we did at the Adelphi Theatre in the Strand, and we would play it for the Christmas season, and then we were going to go on a tour, and the tour was all set up, and in fact our opening date was Leeds, but unfortunately, I don't know whether you can remember, but that was the time when the IRA had a bombing campaign, and we could hear them going off while we were playing. And naturally, parents didn't want to take their children into London to run the risk, and so it unfortunately ran out of money, which was a great shame, because the idea was that we were going to go on tour around the country and then go to Blackpool for the summer season and rehearse another story and come back to London, and it might have been an ongoing seasonal thing.